Thanks for joining us for today's video where we will try to fix a fluorescent light system that's not working. We have 3 lights in this room, one of which is not working, the other 2 are working. So this set right here, when we turn it off, they turn off. When we turn it on, they just barely flicker. So we have replaced the bulbs. These are new bulbs that were certain work, but because they do not come on fully, we're going to replace the ballast, and hopefully that fixes our problem. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do is make sure we turn off the electricity to the circuit we're going to be working on. So in other words, we want to turn the lights out in that room. So we come to the electrical panel and we open it up, and most electrical panels have a description here of each circuit, the number of the circuit, and what is serviced by that circuit. Here we see laundry room lights, and we're in the laundry room, and we have determined already that it is circuit number 12. So we come over here and we say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and we just flip it from the on position to the off position. So we are safe to work on that circuit. Another way we kept ourselves safe on this electrical project is we left the lights on in that room. When we went to the circuit breaker box and flipped the circuit breaker, we ensured that the lights did indeed go off in that room. If you find yourself doing an electrical project, an additional measure you can take for your own safety is to get a little tool like this. It's called a non-contact voltage tester. So the way it works is you press the button and get the tip of it close to an outlet, switch, or wire, any source of electricity, and if the current is still on, it will light up and beep, and that lets you know that that current is still dangerous to work on. So one of the first things we need to do is remove the light bulbs. So you just rotate them and then slide them down. They have a little channel that these little pegs slide in. Once you get them lined up, they come out pretty easily. So what I did there was I just took the weight off these electrical lines best I could and propped it on top of a ladder so that I can support it while I'm working on it. So I'm removing the screw that holds the other end of this cover on, so we can get these out of our way. Alright, so I've got this turned sideways now, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. This is the ballast, and we feel like that's our problem, so we're going to be removing that and replacing it with a new one, which looks like this. And they come in the, we got this from Home Depot, but you can get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, hardware stores, they carry them. And there are different sizes for different light and lamp types, and like this one right here says not suitable for LED lamps of 17 watts T8 LED lamp or 20 watt T12 LED lamp. And how you determine what you need is you can look on here on the packaging for your bulbs. Like this is a 40 watt, but it'll also tell you if it's a T12, T8, T20, and that refers to the size of the lamp, and that'll help you determine which one you need. So what I've done here is I've unwrapped the wiring. It was wrapped from the factory like this, so I've just separated it out, and I've set it up here to see which wires I can cut and which ones I need to leave long. You can see that the white wire and the black wire here I need to leave long enough to go to about right here. So I'll probably either not cut them at all, or I might cut them a little bit, maybe this much off. The white wire is your neutral wire, and the black wire is your hot wire. Your yellow wires, in my case, are going to come to this side. As you can see, I've got yellow wires, white wires, and black wires over here, so that's what I've set everything up to look like. And then over here, I have my blue and red wires, and these little red and blue wires take power to each end of the bulbs on this side, and the yellow wires distribute the power with the little black wires here too to this end of the bulb. The easiest way to do this is to just leave the old ballast in, wire the new one in by removing one of these connectors at a time, and that way you don't get mixed up on what wires were where and what was connected to what. You're just making a straight replacement. So in my case, I'm using a pair of needle nose pliers with a set of wire cutters within it. I thought I had my wire dikes or wire strippers with me. I would prefer having that with me, but we can make do with this. So I'm just going to trim this off. And give me a fresh piece of wire here. And wire this back together. And you can tell when these wire nuts grip and when they don't. When they grip well on both wires, and you'll meet good resistance here, and then you can begin twisting, and when it starts twisting the wires, you know that you've got a good seat on that. And then to test it, you can just pull out a little bit just to make sure it's good, and this one's fine. So now we'll replace this other one. So I'm going to trim this one off again. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I find that if you have a fresh piece of wire, it's more likely to go well when you put the wire nut on there. So we'll take our wire nut, put these close together, jam it up on there, and begin twisting again. So this is the black wire or the hot wire, and you can see whoever put this one in taped the black and the white wires. They wanted to make sure that these wires didn't come out because they carry electricity to and from the box. But actually, you really shouldn't use electrical tape. I know they call it electrical tape, but it can be flammable, and they really recommend you don't use it. It's really unnecessary. So we're going to cut this connection out. Move the old wire, fold that out of our way. Bring the new wire up. Get us a new piece of wire there. So that's got this side wired in. And this side of the old one wired out. And now we'll get to work on this side. So on this side, this is what I like to call the short side. In other words, it's closest to the ballast. So I don't need all this spaghettiness of wire right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim back some of these wires just to make it a little less confusing, a little easier to deal with. When you do that, just make sure you don't trim it back shorter than what you need, but we got plenty to deal with here. So we'll separate these just to make it a little easier to look at, know what we're dealing with, and then we'll replace these one by one just like we did on the other side. And that's a good example right there of why you should always trim out and get a fresh piece that hasn't been previously put in a wire nut. Actually, this is coming from what I just stripped. So actually what happened there was when I stripped the wire, and that's a problem with using this as a wire stripper instead of a set of wire strippers or wire dikes, is it's easy to cut through the wire here and not know it, or partially cut through the copper and not know it. I just happened to feel it let go. That's what let me know that I needed to look at it closer and make sure whether it broke or not. And it did break. So that's good. This good, this good. We got one more to go here. This one. So you see there, same thing happened. I got lazy and didn't get a fresh end on there. Good example of why to do it right and not to cut corners. And then I'm going to take my 10 millimeter, or I believe a 5/16 in this case would work as well, nut driver with the socket on the end, and I'm just going to go right here and take this support out for the old ballast, and we'll replace it with the new ballast. And all that's left to do is to slide this out. They changed the style of these ballasts. As you can see, this one's much smaller, and you can't tell it, but this one's much lighter. This is an old style. It's called a Class P, and it is much heavier, but evidently the technology changed, and they were able to make it much easier to work with, really, because the weight of this, particularly if you're doing this overhead, you know, it can be kind of cumbersome. So that's a good invention. So now to set this in there, we'll just slide one of these tabs in and thread our nut back on. Now all that's left is to fold these in a fairly uniform manner, and then put the cover back on, and then mount it back up in the ceiling. So we'll do that. You want to be sure that your wires are positioned in such a way that they're not turned too sharp or have too much of a kink in them or pressure on them. And you want to make sure that they're down within the housing of this and not laying over top like this one is, so that when you put your cover on, you're not kinking any wires and creating any potential spots for a wire to be cut. This is your ground wire here, and it grounds to the housing. When you put your housing on, you want to try to make sure that you capture it with this screw. Just provides an extra layer of protection. So here's where I was talking about taking this ground wire and setting it over top of that hole in the housing. Okay. So now we're just reattaching the frame of the light to the little bar of the drop ceiling here, which is how it was. And you may or may not have that similar situation. So the only thing we have left to do, I think, is reinstall the light bulbs here. Just line up those holes and slide it up, and then turn it 90 degrees. It should hold. Now make sure you get both of those tabs in there. What I'm talking about there is make sure you get both of these tabs slid all the way up in the socket. And then rotate it 90 degrees. And you'll feel it kind of catch, and then that's it. So we'll turn the lights back on and see if we have success here. And that did fix our problem. So replacing the ballast is, while it seems like it could be a little daunting of a task with all the spaghetti of wires that's in there, if you do it one at a time and replace them in that manner, I think it's a very doable project. Hopefully you learned something and maybe found some value in this video today. If you did, hit the like button and consider subscribing to our channel, where each week we upload a video on more DIY projects and DIY skills. Thanks again. Have a great day.